This is the old town, the historic Ano Poli. Ano Poli is one of the most traditional areas in Thessaloniki. The area preserves much of the Byzantine and Ottoman era city design, which was largely destroyed elsewhere in the city in the Great Fire of 1917. It is known for its small stone-paved streets, old squares, and houses in traditional Greek and Ottoman architecture. Ano Poli is the highest part of the city and is dominated by the city's Acropolis, a Byzantine and Ottoman-era fort known as the Eptapergio. What remains of the old city walls still surround Ano Poli and many Ottoman and Byzantine structures, such as the Church of Prophetess Elias, the Church of St. Nicholas Orphanos, the Taxiarch's Church, the Byzantine Bath, the Church of St. Catherine, the Vladids Monastery, the Ataturk Museum, and the Alika Imarat Mosque still stand in the neighborhood. Other landmarks include the buildings of Karipio Melithro and Villa Varvara. During the Ottoman period, Ano Poli was the main district for the Turks of the city, while Greeks, Western Europeans, and Jews lived below, around the port. Upper Town Thessaloniki is the most ancient part of the city that is approximately 2,300 years old. Here you may see the ancient Byzantine wall with its towers, ancient religious sites with Byzantine mosaics and frescoes, and other remnants of the city's great civilization. Ano Poli, an enchanting mix of stone-paved alleys, traditional houses, and impressive Byzantine-era monuments, is Thessaloniki's most cohesive and colorful neighborhood. Also, the view of the city and the Thermikos Bay and the top of Olympus standing imposing on the background is at its best from the Byzantine walls of the Upper Town. Ano Poli in Thessaloniki is a mix of tiny alleys, traditional houses, and stunning sea views, making it one of the city's most beautiful corners. The architectural style of Thessaloniki's Ano Poli, meaning Upper Town, will take you back to the Byzantine era and enchant you with its beautiful streets, views, and houses. Those in ruins are just as picturesque, rich in both crumbling architectural detail and in contemporary street art adorning their walls. Older residents help preserve the neighborhood's intimate character, too. Due to its location, Ano Poli was the main fortress of the city with defensive structures Eptapergio, Trigonian Tower, which were created during the Byzantine and Ottoman period. Much of the Byzantine walls that surrounded Thessaloniki have been preserved and now form the jewel of the Acropolis of Thessaloniki. High above the main town, it escaped the Great Fire of 1917 and remains the same enchanting labyrinth that it has been for centuries. Standing under the Trigonian Tower, once the city's upper gate, it's easy to see why Ano Poli in Thessaloniki was the city's favored neighborhood for centuries. The forest is to your left, and the whole of the Thermikos Bay is stretched out beneath you. Take a stroll through the cobblestone streets, surrounded by small beautiful Ottoman-style houses, and enjoy spectacular panoramic views of Thessaloniki and the Thermikos Gulf, especially at sunset. Don't forget to have lunch in the small taverns with reasonably priced traditional cuisine. Some of them, such as chai nori and English, count over a century of life. Souvenirs can also be found in small tourist shops in the area, near Portara and Trigonian Tower. Looking a little closer at the Byzantine walls, you can see the borders of the old city because of the fortification which survives in many parts of the city. Take some time to explore the old Byzantine Church of Agios Nikolaos and the Monastery of Vladids, which were built in the 14th century AD. It is one of the oldest and most interesting buildings to be found in Ano Poli. Today, many historic buildings have been restored or rebuilt, preserving the Byzantine spirit and many of its beautiful mansions. And if you're looking for still more nature, you can hike parts of the extensive trail system running through the Sheikh Su forest that borders Ano Poli's northeastern edge. Ano Poli in Thessaloniki can be reached on foot if you like walking, or by bus number 22 and number 23. Going up the labyrinth-like streets might be tiring, but the good food and stunning views will make up for it. Ano Poli is enclosed within the ancient city walls. A UNESCO World Heritage Site, the Byzantine-era fortifications were erected to shield inhabitants and property from enemy attack. Today, the walls bear the weight of those they've sheltered and shelter still. One can imagine these fortifications having eavesdropped on their wards throughout history. Among these are the Heptapergian seven-towered fortress, the Trigonio Tower, the Gardens of the Pasha, the Church of Agios Nikolaos Orphanos the Orphan, the Church of Hosios David, and the Vladidon Monastery. You can rest in one of the many cafes and taverns of the area and enjoy food overlooking the city. The basic characteristics of all the historical periods of Thessaloniki, and especially the Byzantine one. The glorious Byzantine cultural heritage of Thessaloniki is wonderfully reflected in the picturesque cobbled streets, the well-kept and glorious Byzantine temples, and the walls of the Acropolis in Ano Poli, which absolutely justify the pinnacle of power in the city during the years of Byzantium. And it is a fact that in the historical urban fabric of Ano Polis, a spectacular journey takes place in the Byzantine past of the city, and the special historical profile of Thessaloniki is revealed, which, although it deservedly won the title of co-ruling city in the Byzantine years, remains a real queen in the hearts of all its inhabitants and visitors. Come, then, to discover together, through charming routes in the picturesque neighborhoods and selected monuments of Ano Polis, the reasons why the area is culturally and historically considered the most interesting area of Thessaloniki, full of unique images and surprises for everyone. The walls, triangle tower, and Eptapergio. Following the traces of the impressive Byzantine fortification, which are preserved, almost intact, in the area of Ano Poli, the imposing fortification of the Acropolis is revealed to the eyes of every visitor, perfectly integrated, today, in the modern urban fabric of the city. Two large gates, the portares, lead to the inside of the Acropolis, which always served as the last refuge of the inhabitants in cases of conquest of the city. Next to the eastern portara, which leads outside the walls, is the gate of Empress Ano Poli, giving direct access to the triangle tower, also known as the chain tower. Impressive and extremely imposing, this cylindrical tower, built at the same time as the White Tower, is located on the most impressive balcony of the city, offering a panorama that takes your breath away and compensates the senses. At its highest point, the Acropolis returns from the fortress Eptapergio, the famous Genti Cowl, a monumental complex of the Paleologan era, consisting of the fortified enclosure with 10 towers. Memories of recent Greek history are awakened in the impregnable fortress of Thessaloniki, as the monument, in its long history, was transformed, among other things, into a place of imprisonment and concentration of political prisoners, to later acquire the archaeological and historical status, which today, they highlight it as the top historical attraction of the city. Latimu Monastery, St. David. Through narrow and labyrinthine cobbled streets, stone stairs, and flowery picturesque squares of Ano Polis, close to the only Vlatata, the visitor is led to the monastery of Latimu, in other words, to St. David, hidden, literally, from the surrounding houses, which surround the brilliant Byzantine monument. The monastery, which owes its name to the marble quarries that existed in the area in the past, is a true jewel of the Byzantine history of Thessaloniki and a monument which arouses global interest for the amazing mosaic that adorns its interior. The vision of Ezekiel, as this particular mosaic is known in Byzantine art, symbolizes the greatness of God, presenting for the first and only time the figure of Jesus as a rude teenager, in the type of the corresponding ancient Greek statues of classical beauty, following the precepts of Byzantine art. A multitude of symbolisms, in combination with the bright, exquisite colors of the mosaics, masterfully convey the image of paradise and convey in a completely understandable way the greatest lessons of the Orthodox Christian faith. The frescoes of high aesthetics, which complement the interior decoration of the temple, intensify the suggestiveness and the feeling of immersion that everyone submits when they enter the interior of the small temple, while the well-kept flower garden, with the stunning view to the city, completes an unprecedented experience of spiritual mysticism. The St. Nicholas Orphan, the journey in the rich Byzantine tradition and history in Ano Poli of Thessaloniki continues with the visit to another temple of special beauty and importance, Agios Nikolaos the Orphan. The small and unpretentious church, dedicated to the patron saint of orphans, is a real museum of brilliant Byzantine paleo painting, as it retains all its rich illustrations inside. The impressive pictorial iconographic program of the church is divided into zones and reveals that it is the work of an inspired artist. Equally impressive are the architectural members, columns, and capitals which adorn the interior of the church, while the green and shady courtyard of the church undoubtedly intensifies the character of the monument as a true sanctuary of body and soul. The old town of Thessaloniki, or Ano Poli, most commonly called by the Greeks, is interesting to visit, but only if you were in Thessaloniki for a long time, and if it is not particularly hot. It's nice to see a different architecture, medieval buildings, a church from the Byzantine period, a view of the city from the fort, but we cannot say that you should plan to visit the old city if you are staying in Thessaloniki only 1 or 2 days. You can visit Ano Poli in several ways. The first is of course walking. For this you need 40 to 50 minutes walk from the center of Thessaloniki uphill. The old town and the old walls can be the landmark of all parts of the city, so no matter where you go from uphill, you will definitely get to the old town. We advise you to go to the old city by city bus. Line 23, one-way ticket for €1, and the bus starts from Freedom Square, Eleftherios Square or Platea Venizelou. This square is located very close to the sea and the old harbor. You can buy a one-way ticket on any of the stores in Thessaloniki, where you can also find out about lines and stations. You can buy tickets on the machine, on the bus, in which case the card costs €1.10. Make sure you have the right amount of money, because the machine does not return the change. Also, you can only buy individual tickets. You cannot buy or pay more at once. Of course, it is necessary to denounce the ticket on the bus. The controls are fairly often, so smuggling is not impossible, but it is not recommended. The third option to go to the old city is by bus line 50. It is a special, tourist line with an audio guide in several languages, but we have already written about it, and will write again in a little more detail. If you decide to take the regular bus line, it's best to get out of the bus at the Polio Terma station. You will hear the names of the stations or read them on the bus. As soon as you get out of the bus, you will see the walls of Acropolis, called Eptapergio, meaning 7 towers. Eptapergio was built in the 15th century in defense of the Ottoman attack, but it is presumed that the first fortress was formed, even before the new era. Along the high walls, there are several large gates to enter the old town. In the eastern part of the wall, there is an entrance leading to the Tower of Trigonian, from where the most beautiful view of the city is provided. The view is especially nice when the day is windy and without fog. Then you can see Olympus very clearly from the tower. In this part of the city, there is also a small square, a church, several taverns and cafes, and several souvenir shops. Thessaloniki is a nice place to visit, friendly people, and they speak good English.